all the way until disease and death. The self always trying to fulfill itself and not caring about any other self. And finally, the lowest form of the human being that most humans seem to never evolve beyond, and that is the body. The body. The body that eats and drinks and sleeps, that smells and tastes, sees, hears, touches. The body that houses the whole person but cannot fulfill the other components. The body can never fulfill the soul. The body can never fulfill the mind. The body can never fulfill the heart's desires. The body can never contain the self. The body only houses the rest of the person. But most of us, we live all of our lives only feeding the body. The body is the lowest form of the person, but is perceived by most to be the most critical and the most valuable. And this is why the hedonists, the materialists, and the pleasure seekers, they can never seem to arrive at anything more than the satisfaction of the body. And that's why everybody seems to live for Friday night. They work like dogs, like animals, stealing, scheming, doing everything, working their hearts out, working double jobs to own a car, a house, to buy clothes, to go to fancy restaurants, to lay down with an ugly or a pretty woman, or a bald-headed or a crippled man. Doesn't matter. Just lay down with something or someone. The body. And we go through life from Friday to Friday, Friday to Friday, until the year's out. And another year's out. And the next thing we know, we have lived 50 or 60 years of that kind of living. And what do we have? Absolutely nothing that resembles happiness or success. The human being, unlike other animals, is in need of enlightenment. The human being is in need of inspiration. The human being is in need of guidance. The human being is in need of spiritual awareness. The body is like a vehicle that houses the passengers and protects them from the elements and delivers them to their intended destination. The self is like the driver who holds the wheel and makes the determination to turn, to brake, to accelerate, or to stop. The mind is the navigator who reminds, who calculates about the distance, the fuel, the direction, the destination, the environment, and coordinates all the dynamics for the driver. The heart is the generator, the source of energy. The heart is what keeps all the passengers engaged, entertained, inspired. The heart is what keeps all the passengers of the body connected to their purpose of their journey. But the soul is the real purpose of the journey. The soul is always telling the other passengers about the real purpose of the journey. And sometimes we don't want to hear what the soul has to say. The soul is reminding us when we're young about containing our youth. We don't want to hear that. The soul is reminding us when we're old about our youth, but we don't want to hear that. The soul is reminding us when we are well, when we're healthy, when we're strong. The soul is reminding us to be grateful, but we don't want to hear that. When we're ill, when we're sick, the soul is reminding us of the health that we used to have, but we don't want to hear that. The soul is reminding us about death. While you're living, the soul is always knocking at the door and telling you and I that death is inevitable. Tomorrow, one next day will be your day. The soul is telling us this, but we don't want to listen. The soul is the conscience, which reminds and drives the passengers. The soul is always irritating us, telling us about its origin, telling us about where it's going to wind up at, always trying to tell us to distinguish the difference between real and unreal. The soul is the supernatural self, which is connected to the unseen elements. The unseen elements of birth, the unseen elements of dreams, the unseen elements of vision, and inevitably the unseen element of death. The soul is that which enters the body and becomes the person. At a certain point, when the child is conceived, it is at one point just a piece of flesh, or at one point it is just a sperm drop connected to an egg, just a clot. At another point, it becomes a fetus. At another point, it becomes an embryo. At a certain point, the soul enters and it becomes an actual person. And we are told that when a child is in the womb of the mother, at 14 weeks, it is a complete person. The heart is beating. Its fingerprints are there. Its mind, its brain is operating. Its little lungs are operating and breathing. All of its fingers and toes have been formed. And just by the way, just so that you know this figure, in the Western Hemisphere, that is, United States of America, Canada, the UK and Europe, and Australia, 2,300 little children, little people, are murdered every single day. It's called abortion. The easy way out. Can you imagine that? In an educated, sophisticated world bent upon success, they are murdering 2,350 little people every single day. Now you divide that by the hour. It means that more than 105 little babies are being slaughtered, aborted every hour. So by the time we finish sitting here, by the time we finish our lecture here in the Western Hemisphere, where people are sophisticated, wealthy, stable, educated, about 250 or 350 little people would have been murdered but they call that abortion. We call that family planning, a real nice word.